All right, guys, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. So excited to have a return guest with us today here on The Truth Matters. Neil is with us again. I know you guys are very familiar with his work, Portals to Ascension, and all the things that he's done as he travels all over the world and interviews tons of people and has quite a background of music and geometry and sacred geometry and frequency and all the fun things. Today, though, we are going to talk about disclosure. And is disclosure really happening? Is this like about to really go? Like, what are we seeing in the news right now? What's really going on? Like, is this real? Is this fake? Is it blue beam? Like, all the things. Let's talk about this today. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody, please go to swiftfire.org. You can also go to drsharnel.com. All the books, all the resources, all the classes, there's biofeedback, there's all kinds of great things, as well as all of our past shows, including having Neil there before, and all of our future shows that you guys may be interested in. So definitely hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and also if you choose to be a member, we would love for you to join us. And we have our monthly meetings and all the fun things too. So that was a breath full of stuff. I'm so happy to have you, Neil. Tell
Good
us
to be
what's
here.
going on. Yeah, tell us how you doing. What's going on in your world?
I'm good. I'm good. Just moved down here to England, so just being grounded here and putting on some events. We're establishing a Portal to Ascension headquarters in England. So we actually have a large conference coming up in Glastonbury in August, Portal to Ascension main conference. And I was born in England, so it's like kind of like fulfilling a karmic cycle coming back to the place I was born, and
Wow.
doing this event here. So and as we're doing this, a lot of things are happening. Like the reason why I reached out to you is because I would say that the biggest activity in disclosure has happened in the last 2 weeks, ever, really, even more so than when the US government and the military officials came out in 2017 and said that there was a UFO program and kind of validated many different people. I would say it's even bigger than that. Not to say that their intention is real disclosure or their intention could be even trying to lead us to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Just no matter what way we look at it, whether it's a real disclosure of the fact that we're not alone in the universe, or there's some sort of agenda trying to direct us some other way, both things are as groundbreaking and paradigm shifting. So I just wanted to like reach out to you and share it with as many people as possible because a lot of people aren't following the story. So I wanted to give kind of like a historical take on what's happening and how we got to this point.
Awesome. Well, England
Mm-hmm.
sounds exciting. And do you want to share a little bit about the conference coming up too?
Yes.
I I don't know. I didn't know you were born there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but I actually lived over there twice. I went to the University of London, then I lived there as a kid
Oh,
a little
nice.
bit, but not
Okay.
born there. And I know Laura's born there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Laura's
interesting.
coming to our conference.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a
So,
little bit about that before you jump into this history
all
thing.
right. So, the Portal to Ascension, we do around 100 plus events a year, and then we have our signature event, which is the Portal to Ascension conference that usually is in California, and we just had that in actually in San Diego, just like in April, and then I decided like, oh, I want to do something in England because I'm moving there. So I was like, okay, Glastonbury sounds like a good place because I was told by a few people when I visited Glastonbury 6, 7 months ago that even though there's a lot of great events there and a lot of consciousness, there's no real direction of the energy of what it's all for. It's just people are into psychic readings, people are into energy healing or Reiki, and they do events on that. But Portal to Ascension, even though like saying that there's an end result to it is kind of a loose way to explain it because ultimately there really is no time when it comes to this, and we're not waiting for a future date. But Portal to Ascension really is about we're doing all this work in order to create this world that we know that we can live in. So someone there from my Telegram group was like, there's no real direction with a lot of the events that happen here, but Portal to Ascension has an ultimate mission. You should do an event here. So I was like, wow, I never thought of it. So I decided to do like a half day workshop, and then it turned into a 2 day conference. And then, Laura Eisenhower hit me up, a bunch of other people hit me up and said, I heard you're going to Glastonbury. I want to come. Then it turned into a 3 day megalithic conference. And now it's a 4 day conference with one day that's a tour of ancient Avalon because Glastonbury is there's many things connected to it. not only was Glastonbury once called Ancient Avalon and was actually surrounded by water in the ancient times, the stories of King Arthur and King Arthur's kingdom was supposedly there. And there's a place called King Arthur's Abbey where they actually have the grave of King Arthur and Guinevere, and there are actually skeletal remains in there. And it's just been there for so many hundreds and hundreds of years that some people think that the church put it there as kind of like a mythological thing to give reverence to them. But a lot of people believe that is actually their grave site. So the King Arthur story took place there. Plus, it's the heart chakra center of the world. So a lot of people go there for nefarious reasons and positive reasons to actually like mess with the frequencies. And the Celtics and Druids, when they were kicked out of Anatolia and the whole of Europe by the Romans, they went to England. And then when the Germanic tribes came to England, and then and also the Romans came here, they continued to depopulate, if you will, the Druidic cultures and communities. The last stronghold of the Druids was Glastonbury, Cornwall, and Wales. So even when they were converted into Christianity, they maintained their pagan rituals for hundreds of years behind closed doors in secret in Glastonbury, but pretending that they were Christians so they wouldn't get killed.
Wow.
So yeah, that's just like not even half of it, because there's even a story. So there's a Michael, something called the Michael line that goes from Egypt all the way to Glastonbury, and every one of those points, the major points going through France, is actually the line where Jesus went with his children and Mary Magdalene, um, because he really actually, a lot of stories say he actually didn't die, and when he left from Egypt and followed up through France with Mary Magdalene, he ended up in Glastonbury. So there's all these stories of Mary Magdalene and Jesus being in Glastonbury as well. So all this energy combined led me to deciding to just go all out and create a big event there.
That's so cool. That is
Yeah,
it. What are the dates for that?
August 11th, 12th, and 13th. So 3
Okay.
days. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
So
Okay.
Laura flies in on the 10th. She'll be there. We have 24 speakers. 12 of them are flying in from the US just to be at this event.
Wow.
Yeah,
What,
the rest of them are
what
from
a
England.
amazing group of people. That's awesome. I love that you're doing that, and I love
Mhm.
England. So more power to you.
Thank
Let's
you.
talk about the disclosure stuff. I mean,
Okay.
I know you have some slides to show us.
Yeah. Well, I'll start out by because it's whenever I think about this, it's just so much information. It's really challenging at times to even think about where to start, because ultimately, like, to give like a kind of a brief historical take on UFOs and UFO disclosure, it really started like the increase in UFO sightings that eventually led to what we now have in today's world really started in the late 1800s. That's when we started documenting actual UFO sightings. There was a UFO crash that occurred in Texas in the late 1800s and 1890s, and there was actually a newspaper article of an ETs being found and them being buried in Texas, right? And then from then we continued on to World War One, World War Two, where we had the uptake and the increase of Foo Fighters, because all of a sudden we're now actually using aircraft. We're fighting in the air, and all of a sudden all these different sightings occurred. But I would say the huge milestone that I really want to start this out with was the upturn in UFO sightings that occurred in the 40s, including Roswell, and in 1945, 2 years before Roswell, the first crash, which was in San Antonio, New Mexico, which we actually went and interviewed the last survivor. He actually passed away recently. He was the last witness of that actual site in San Antonio, Mexico. And in that place that we went and saw where the UFO crashed. There's a circle on the ground in the shape of a UFO, and nothing grows in it. Only everything grows around it. To
To
this
this
day,
day?
to this day, yeah, we went and filmed it. Yeah,
Wow. I did not
and
know that.
he explained the insectoid beings he saw and everything. So Roswell was a misdirection. So Roswell probably did occur, but I think they wanted to put more energy on that because the San Antonio crash 2 years before was actually much more profound because of the circumstances around it. So then we go into the U.S. government creating different types of projects to research this, right? Researching UFOs, creating Project Blue Book, and a lot of these individuals that went into these programs went in as skeptics, and there's a reason why they came out as believers, right? Like J. Allen Hynek, for example, he was the head of Project Blue Book. His son, Paul Hynek, he speaks on Portal to Ascension. It's not because his dad didn't believe and he believes. his dad continued the legacy because after going and trying to disprove that what was happening, they ended up proving something was occurring. But what happened alongside this was it seemed that from the really beginning, it seems that from the 40s, they started getting UFO crashes were occurring, and there were reverse engineering technology. Because what's coming out now is that it seems that anti-gravity technology was mastered in October 1954. Okay.
Yes.
So if they mastered that type of technology back then, and we're like 60 to 70 years now into the future, imagine where they're at now. And a lot of people like Stephen Greer and other individuals are saying that they're hundreds of years in advancement of this technology. And even Michael Salla has done full-on presentations where he says that they're so arrogant, basically, so entitled, that they've already created patents, U.S. patents for this technology. And if you do a little research and go and look up the patent numbers, you can take a look at the technology that they use to reverse engineer it. So they're creating. So the question is, are they utilizing this in order to create some sort of monetary gain, or are they utilizing it to have maybe some sort of control over the world, or a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. And I've heard it's even before that they've been doing the gravity stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
who knows when and why it's being suppressed. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Jetsons when you were a kid,
Yeah, I
uh,
love that show.
but we for sure thought that we would be flying in cars by 2020, and like here we
Mm-hmm.
are, no move, no changes, So it's
Yeah.
very interesting. My daughter and I were just talking about that the other day, and I'm like, why have we not evolved at all? Like, why are we still driving cars?
That technology exists for us to do that. Even the way we utilize rockets to go to space, that's been around for 50, 60 years. It
Yeah.
hasn't advanced. So there's like it seems to be two tracks of what's going on. Some sort of technology behind closed doors, and then this linear progression of technology that we're being shown,
Right.
right?
I agree.
And it gets to the point where people that consider themselves forward thinkers, scientific thinkers, are following the linear progression of what's being told to them so much that if you question that reality, they start throwing things in your face like, well, extraterrestrials can't visit here because you can't break the speed barrier of light, right? So that gets into what I'm going to talk about in a bit here, because finally, this whistleblower that came out, David Grush, he actually had a 7-hour long interview on News Nation, and this is what's occurred in the last couple of weeks. And on that, when they said, well, how are they visiting us, how they come to this planet, and he started saying, well, it seems that they're using quantum technology where they're bending space-time and able to travel short distances in a period of moments, which
Yeah.
is beautiful because all the other disclosure that's come out, they've a lot of the mainstream, when they have skepticism about this and start doubting it, one of the things that they say is that, well, I doubt it's possible because extraterrestrials would have to live for thousands of years to even visit Earth.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. For sure. Well, I'm excited to see this timeline that you
Okay,
have.
I'm gonna pull it up right now. So did you at all get to see the interview with David Grush or know anything about that?
With who?
With David Grush, the whistleblower that came out and spoke about the UFO crash retrieval team that
I
came
have
out.
not. No.
So I'll share about that as I'm doing this.
Sure.
So basically, just to give everybody a little summary of why I'm here and why I wanted to talk about this, just about 2 weeks ago now, News Nation, and I'll just show you, like I have an image of him right here. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this guy right here. Um, actually, maybe I should show the video. It's only like a minute long.
Go for it.
Will you be able to hear my audio, or do I have to click something?
I think you should be able to play it.
Okay, let's try it. Let's try it. Yeah. There we go.
Last week, NASA held its first public meeting on UFOs, which, by the way, are now called officially unidentified aerial phenomena. This is a year after launching a study into unexplained sightings. And now tonight, a worldwide TV exclusive you will only see right here on News Nation. Bombshell claims from a military whistleblower published just this morning, alleging a secret UFO retrieval program within the U.S. government. David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, and and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, now formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before. He is speaking one-on-one with investigative reporter Ross Coldhart, reporting for News Nation.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
All right, tune into Vargas tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern, a worldwide TV exclusive you will only see on News Nation.
Okay, yeah, that was just the little synopsis of it. If you go to News Nation and actually go to they're not mainstream, but they're not alternative either. They're just like one of the big, like, almost mainstream channels on YouTube. And if you go to their video section and just type in UFOs, they'll be around every single day for the last week. They've released something, right? So, and you can go there and hear clips of the interviews. But the first article that came out, the first news release said non-human intelligence spacecraft found, and then the next day, a bunch of other military whistleblowers came out and said that the U.S. government has 12 crashes retrieved from non-human origins in the custody. And then other whistleblowers came out and said there's over 100. This all happened within a period of a few days. And as they were doing this, they started saying, like, even they asked him a question, why are you calling non-human origin? Isn't this extraterrestrial? And they're saying, from our understanding and our understanding of this whole thing and the information we're receiving is that they're interdimensional, therefore they're beyond extraterrestrial. This is all coming out in the mainstream now, right? So I wanted to speak about this because a lot of people, it was interesting because I take time reading the comments on these videos as well, and especially from the mainstream, because it's a mainstream channel. 99.9% of the people watching this channel aren't into this world. So I wanted to see what they're saying. And it's interesting because a lot of people, this guy, first of all, is one of the highest ranking US intelligence officers. And a lot of the people on here that were in the regular world, if you will, were actually like mind blown about it and started talking about it and having questions about it. However, a lot of people in our world, like myself and others, were actually doubting it with full skepticism and saying, like, that they don't believe this, right? There was people on both sides that believe both different things. So it was just interesting to note that a lot of people that weren't in this world were starting to accept it as a possible reality. And it's because many of those individuals wait for some information to be dripped from the top down rather than the grassroots movement. They don't want to hear someone that they consider a quack, someone that they consider new age or spiritual. But when it comes from somebody that they believe is credible, all of a sudden they start believing it. Now with this one, multiple mainstream outlets like the Washington Post, the New York Times, outlets that were actually taking this UFO phenomena since 2017 on and releasing a lot of things. Like the New York Times was the first one to release the 3 major videos that we have been seeing in circulation since 2017. When they started doing this, they actually stonewalled this actual story. They didn't want to take it on. So this gets into the discernment. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen right here and talk about the timeline. And Sharnael, feel free to cut me off because I'm kind of just going to keep going. But if you want to comment on it or make any, comments, suggestions, let me know.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay. So when it comes to discernment of this topic, it seems that all of the videos that were released since 2017, we have the USS Nimitz incident, which was the main one released by Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 through his Twitter stream with NSA and CIA and NASA officials on his stream with him. That was when finally people of the government, people that were intelligence officers, finally for the first time ever, that weren't considered quacks by the mainstream, came out and started saying, like, hey, there's something going on anomalous in the skies, and these things are doing things that we aren't even able to do. They're violating the laws of physics. This isn't supposed to be possible. But all of those videos, as I'm going to show you in a second here, from my understanding and from many other people's understandings, were actually reverse engineered craft and not actually extraterrestrial. So the big difference between what was happening now and what has happened over the last 6-7 years is all the videos that the mainstream picked up upon, all the people that came out on the mainstream, Lou Elizondo and more, were all speaking about craft that were actually shadow government craft that were reverse engineered. This is the first time ever anybody has come out and said that we're going beyond that, and this is the craft that they actually got the technology from. And in one of the interviews, David Grush, they ask him saying, well, did they find any bodies? And he goes, well, you would think that if you found crashed and intact craft, you're going to find bodies. And what I can tell you is that's exactly what they did. So he's even come out on these platforms now, and they're saying that they actually found bodies, and this program has been going on for decades.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and here's the timeline now. So, of course, we have Roswell. I'm going to go over it pretty quickly. You can watch this back if you want to. But we have Roswell occurred, right? And then soon after that, even though they said it was a weather balloon, which they keep using as if like we're so, I guess many people do believe it, right? But 3 years later, for some reason, they went ahead and created Project Blue Book. The Project Blue Book went from 52 to 69. And in this project, the U.S. Air Force conducted investigations on UFO sightings. It collected and analyzed thousands of reports. And towards the end of Project Blue Book, first of all, a little disclaimer, the way it works is if any of these projects are successful, and they're so successful that they're getting information that they don't want to share with the general public, they pretend to actually close the project down, but then it becomes something called SAP, Secret Access Project. And then they start using black budget money on these projects, such as, I think it was $1 trillion the Pentagon was missing the day before 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That kind of money gets redirected to these programs. So then we have 66 to 68, the Condon Committee. The University of Colorado conducted a scientific study funded by Air Force. Final report stated that the UFOs did not present a threat to national security and recommended termination of official investigations. So this is interesting here because they say recommended termination of official investigations. A lot of people read this and think that they ended official investigations. But what are two words that they have in there? This is discernment again. Recommendation and official. They recommended it. They never said that they closed it. And official means that they just got rid of what they're officially telling us, but it could be unofficially continuing, right? So it's like if they ever get to a point where people are, which is happening now, which is so amazing, is all these platforms on YouTube now are saying the government lied to us because of what's coming out with the whistleblowing that's happening. So these are the things that they do in their wording, and they release documents for decades so that when people come up to them and say, well, you lied to us, this is what's going on behind closed doors, they can say, well, actually, no, if you can see that we released this document, you just never took the time to look into it. Then we have another milestone, 2001, the Disclosure Project with Stephen Greer. A former emergency room physician organized a press conference called the Disclosure Project. Greer and other witnesses, including military personnel, claimed to have insider knowledge of UFOs and extraterrestrial visitations. So there was a good amount of things occurring, some sightings happening between the 70s and 2001, but this was a huge milestone that really inspired a lot of people to take on disclosure. And since 2001, it started ramping up. Many different investigators out there, Linda Moulton Howe, Grant Cameron, all individuals you can look up, Paula Harris, and Clifford Stone. Clifford Stone came out during this time. He lived in Roswell, and on my YouTube channel, Portal to Ascension YouTube channel, I just released an interview we had with him and Paula Harris. Just a few days ago, I released it. He's transitioned now. However, he was actually a part of the UFO crash retrieval team. So when this David Grush thing came out, my mind was blown because this is the first time ever that someone that wasn't just in my world of UFOs was actually validating and confirming Clifford Stone's cases. That Clifford Stone, he was actually, during Vietnam, he was part of the UFO crash retrieval team, and he was being deployed to Vietnam. They would put blindfolds on him and his whole team because they don't want you to know where you're going. They would have you parachute down, and then you would go down, and there would be a UFO there, and they would extract bodies and technology.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of his work, and he talks about, they took the aliens, and he even tried to help with them and stuff like that. I mean, because they were like prisoners basically, and or I think wasn't one hurt or something, and yeah.
Most
Anyway,
likely, yeah, because he had so many different cases that I don't even know them all, right? But he said that the U.S. government had a manual of the anatomy of 17 different extraterrestrial bodies and how to help them out if they're basically like bleeding out or something like that when they're found at these different sites. That's how often the
17.
crashes were happening.
I didn't
What's that?
know it was that many, but
Yeah,
17, that's a lot. Okay,
yeah.
interesting.
When I was at his house, like 7, 8 years ago in Roswell, he was showing me documents that had never been released before, and he was putting them on CDs and just sending them all over the world to people to see. And basically, a lot of these documents were declassified in 1995, like Project Stargate, the remote viewing program to Mars, right? Classified in 95, declassified. However, they were not put in. They weren't digitized until around 5, 6 years ago. So the only way to go and find it would be to go to New York. I mean, to Washington D.C., go to the National Archives, and you would have to know the code names of the actual programs to be able to find it in the archives. That's how hard it was to retrieve this information. That's what Clifford Stone would do. He would go and attempt to look through all of this and basically get documentation to prove that he was actually a part of this. And those are some of the documents I saw. And then in 2017, all of a sudden, there was a huge influx of documents coming out, WikiLeaks and beyond that. But all that stuff had been declassified for 10 years. It's just that it was never put on the internet. So when it was put on the internet, that just gave us a whole new, really mind blowing documents to look through. Like some of the things that you can look through and find out like are just like amazingly just so profound. Like one of them is like a UFO crash in 1954. Well, it wasn't a crash; it was a landed UFO in upstate New York in 1954. And when the crash retrieval team was deployed there, this is an actual document. It's not even Clifford Stone. It's on the FBI's website. Type in FBI UFO, and you'll find the list of all these documents. And when they would put their hand towards the UFO, there was hieroglyphs on it, and the hieroglyphs would shift into different hieroglyphs when you would put your hand closer to it. It's on their own website.
Yep.
Yep. So then we have 2007, 2012. So in 2017, it was disclosed. This was the milestone, the big milestone, right? This is when a lot of people were validated in the community. That from 2007 to 2012, it was revealed that the U.S. Department of Defense had been conducting a secret program called ATIP to study unidentified aerial phenomena, commonly known as UFOs. It was actually called OSWAP, right? And drip disclosure fully underway. So it was even a misdirection right here. They gave you a name that wasn't the actual name. That was like a slang name used by some of the people in the program. And the actual program was AAWSAP. Because what did the Pentagon say right after ATIP got disclosed? We have no evidence that there's ever been a program where called ATIP in which we were just exploring UAPs. Well, yes, they didn't because it wasn't called ATIP, right? Another way of misdirecting you by basically doing a play on words. And now this is when it all started really amping up. So 2016, 2017. So the first thing that occurred was many of you may have realized that, like this, for example, this presentation was called UFOs to UAPs, and the reason is that they shifted the name to UAPs in order to rebrand it. They spent so many decades ridiculing anything that had to do with UFOs in order to misdirect the public and make them think that this was a joke, so that they could hide this information from us. That now that they wanted to come out with the truth, they needed to come up with a new name. And the day that this happened was the day Hillary Clinton was on Jimmy Kimmel. And you can find this on YouTube somewhere. And this is basically how it went down. She was on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and some of you might know that she was actually trying to use UFOs and disclosing Area 51 paper. She put some things out about that in order to get more votes from people because she was trying to get votes from the alternative community as well. And she was on Jimmy Kimmel show. First thing you got to realize is, and this is like, you don't have to dig too far in order to find this out, that every single presidential candidate or president that goes onto these talk show hosts that completely are co-opted by the agenda, like are completely like parrots to whatever agenda there is, are always know exactly what's going to be asked of them before they go on the show. They don't just go on there and just get asked random questions, and and we get to see an authentic moment with them. They know what's going to be said, and it was so contrived. She sits down, and he goes, "So let me ask you this. I asked your husband this. I'm kind of paraphrasing that." Are you going to go in and take a look at the Area 51 documents to release whatever's there about UFOs? And then her response is, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. They're not called UFOs anymore. They're called UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, right? And that was the beginning of the rebranding of UAPs. And then following that, we had the 2016 presidential campaign. Just a couple months later, WikiLeaks publishes a series of leaked emails from John Podesta, Edgar Mitchell, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and some of them even said, the email said, I want to have a Skype meeting with you. This is Obama, Mitchell, and someone else. I want to have a Skype meeting with you about the benevolent non-human intelligences in our solar system.
Wow.
Yeah. And the only individual that was going through this with a fine-tooth comb was someone that we were having on our platform all the time at that point, which was Grant Cameron. He was the one spending hours and hours a day going through each of these emails and deciphering them and doing events on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so a lot of mind-blowing things were occurring, but people heard UFOs and things were coming out and didn't really dig deeper into reading the cases. And not to get political here, when it comes to Podesta and Hillary Clinton, a lot of people, including myself, has some severe judgments with them. So just mentioning the names in regards to this disclosure movement already leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. They don't even want to really hear about it, right?
100%. Yes.
So then we have, this is all timed out, drip disclosure. This is drip disclosure right here. 2017, Tom DeLonge, Blink-182 singer. In case you don't know why the Blink-182 singer was behind all of this, he happened to be into UFOs for quite some time. He wrote a book in which he thought the ETs were demons at one point. And since he had been into it for a long time, even in the 90s, where he was like mainstream Blink-182, he started having conversations with people that were in high places about this, and they decided to allow him to be the front man of this information coming out. And that's a whole conversation on its own, why they chose him. And I got to say that I think they believed that he was the perfect bridge from the younger community to the older community, mature enough, but also acts like a child enough to be able to be connected to millennials. They thought he would be a really good front man. But then what happened soon afterwards, after his live stream, is he went on Joe Rogan. On the live stream that he did from his Twitter page with Lou Elizondo, we're introduced to Chris Mellon, all these government officials that are now going out talking about UAPs. What happened is that he went on Joe Rogan, and after saying we don't know what these things are on his actual live stream with these individuals, he got a little too excited and said to Joe Rogan, we do know what these are. These are government reverse technology. You can even see the show. He even had Joe Rogan pull up websites to show the craft that had anti-gravity on it on Joe Rogan's show. And then I started, I'm fast forwarding a little bit here. Like a couple of years ago, I was like, yo, what happened to Tom DeLonge? And I looked up his Twitter feed, and he had posted a Twitter feed about when he went on Joe Rogan, he said information that they didn't want him to say, and they took him down as the front man of this.
Wow.
Yeah. And they replaced him with Jeremy Corbell, who is pretty much a mirror copy, same age, same reach, mature enough to be connected to these individuals, and also like is tattooed up, like a down to earth looking dude that can actually reach out to the younger people. Right? Yeah. So then, okay, so we have the 2017 when this is when the 3 videos were released: the FLIR 1, the gimbal, and the Go Fast. These are the videos you see in circulation everywhere. Pre-2017, search UFO disclosure. Stephen Greer's on the first page. I'm on like the 4th page, and other bunch of people. Grant Cameron's on the 2nd page. 2017 and beyond was also a shift when Google became even more a part of the agenda and completely started like fabricating searches and all this stuff. Now, all you'll see for hundreds of pages, CNN, MSNBC, because this was the hijacking of UFO disclosure. And it was so interesting because the 3 videos that they released, what are these? What are these? What are these? they already knew what they were, and
Mm-hmm.
they were the craft of the shadow government, and there was not one conversation about are if these are anomalous and they're not from this planet and they're not a foreign adversary, what's is this extraterrestrial? Is this interdimensional? They were just talking about the technology and how to utilize this technology to weaponize space. So here we go into another side note: discernment. The rule of thumb that I use in order to look at all this in this world is: are they talking about it being a threat and creating weapons from it, or are they talking about genuinely what, like, looking at it from a more holistic perspective of what are these beings? Oh my god, we don't have any evidence that they've ever attacked us before. Wow, this has been happening for decades and not once have we actually been attacked. Maybe if they would have attacked us, then it would have happened a long time ago. Those are the two different tracks that are happening at this moment. There's those in power or who have been in power that are looking at it from that perspective, saying we have no evidence to suggest that these things are a threat and they're not from anything on Earth. And then there are those saying, like, well, there's something in our sky and they're actually, we're seeing them at military bases and things like that. We need to see what we can do in order to protect ourselves.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a lot of information, especially if you guys haven't looked into this. I mean, I love how you're presenting an actual timeline. I know there's been a lot of discrepancy about even Dr. Greer and
Yeah.
that whole thing, where some people are like excited and some people think he's like deep state or whatever too.
Mhm.
Like, do you have any thoughts on that? And I know we got to wrap up in a minute, but what do you
Yeah.
think about all that? Because he says all ETs are like wonderful and amazing, that there's no like dark side, and as you know, there's probably a little bit of both, just like humans.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of both. What do you think about all that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was Stephen Greer's live streamer for 10 years up until last year. Right.
Oh, I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, like all of his, he never even did an event online through live stream until I messaged him 10 years ago and said, have you ever thought of live streaming your events? Okay. So from my experience of him is he doesn't have good internet connection where he's at in Virginia. He's completely off the grid. He's really has an issue with technology. And if it wasn't for the support of volunteers, his information wouldn't have gone out to mass public. Right. And if it wasn't for me, like, honestly, what we did was exponentially bring his reach. He had that reach, but he wasn't putting it online and streaming it. We were getting 10 times more people online than he was having in person, right? So I was kind of looking at it from that perspective, seeing that if he was kind of co-opted, wouldn't he have more of a platform and more resources rather than these volunteers? Because I've met the volunteers, right? He goes through a lot of volunteers actually, and he's always looking for people to support him. And the whole team and everybody are just regular people. I've met a lot of them, right? So that was the first thing that I kind of said, okay, maybe he isn't a part of any agenda. Now, when it comes to him thinking that they're all benevolent, his whole thing is that the beings that actually traverse space time to get here, right, are such an advanced technology that you would have to have transcended a lot of traumas, a lot of I don't know, a lot of challenges in order to be able to arrive to this planet to do this. And a lot of the nefarious things that are going on and the UFO dogfights and things like that are actually happening from humans that are reverse engineering this technology. So I'm not saying that that's true or not true, but what I think is happening is that he is only connecting to beings that he believes are benevolent, and he kind of has maybe tunnel vision in
That's his
feeling
experience. Yeah.
his experience is the experience, because we're not even speaking about esoteric realities of interdimensional beings, archons, entities, you know, that also could be connected to this reality. When it gets to that, I feel like he's going, even though he's very spiritual, I feel he leans more towards the linear aspect of it all, whereas, Laura Eisenhower, myself, and many other individuals get into more of a what is going on with the cycles of time, what kind of energies have influenced us, what kind of beings have incarnated into human form and have control on our planet, right? I don't think he really sees that world as much.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he has a negative agenda, but it maybe is a little challenging to get along with at times. You know what I mean? And a lot of people maybe take that the wrong way. So he actually did a press conference in DC 2 days after this disclosure happened, where he released and had all these whistleblowers come up, and he released 150 entrances to bases where they're doing reverse engineering and working on ET bodies, and handed it over to Congress. And now Congress, in a few weeks, I believe, is going to hold a hearing on the UFO crash retrievals, and they're going to actually review this document that actually shows you the entrances and how to get to the places they're doing this. Because as he said, and the whistleblower said on this broadcast that they did online, is that they're committing some major human atrocities and crimes. They're killing people, they're trafficking people, they're doing so many things that are affecting people's lives, livelihood, and completely even killing people that are within this world, that it's about time that it stops. So that's what he's pushing towards. So yeah, my answer is that I still don't know. I truly don't really know, because you don't really know anybody, right?
Yeah,
But
the stuff with genetics that they're doing, the
yeah,
cloning, there's so much going on underground that I really think some of the disclosure too with like the movies and the TV shows, like one of the Netflix things, 100 or whatever, as I was
yeah,
like, oh my God, this is real, because I've seen some of this.
yeah.
And then how they, I don't, have you seen that
The
series?
100. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that series. Actually, I've seen the whole thing.
Yeah, so when they're underground and they would steal the people, but they would cause like this division up
Yeah,
there, and meanwhile they're taking blood for everybody to keep
right.
eternal life down there. But
Yeah.
they would try to make it like it was amongst them and pit each other against each other constantly to keep a
Mhm.
distraction. And then they were over here doing. There was just so much. I mean, it was. There's a lot in
There's a
that.
lot of disclosure going on. Have you seen Stargate, the show?
I,
Stargate?
everyone keeps telling me to do that, but I
It's the
haven't.
best. It's the biggest disclosure show ever. And one of the whistleblowers that came out in Greer's press conference last week spoke about Antarctica, and he's from Raytheon, a contract from Raytheon. And all I got to tell you is everything Michael Sala told you about us about Antarctica, all the things about the secret base down there. He literally said, Raytheon contractor, that south of pole, the Antarctica is operates as an air traffic control for spacecraft, and they have a directed energy weapon there that can create earthquakes.
Yeah, I have heard that. I have heard that from several different
So in
sources.
Stargate, they have a base down in Antarctica that's doing the exact same thing.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that was in the movie, but yeah, I
Mhm.
had
No,
heard
it's not the
that.
movie. I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about the shows,
Wow.
because there was a
Oh, the television show. Okay.
Stargate SG-1 was for 10 years, 10 years of shows. And then Stargate Atlantis was the next level of disclosure, because it was about where Atlantis was and bringing it back. And there's even a race of beings called the Wraith that are reptilians in the show. It's like full on disclosure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then Jupiter Rising and just a lot. But
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they hide it in plain sight, right?
Yeah, well, they have to tell you, right? Because
Mhm.
then otherwise they have karmic reactions, responses, and they don't want to have all that. They understand the laws, and so they're putting
Yeah.
it out there, even though it's like under the whole thing of like this is fake and fun and cute and entertainment, and like really they're like, nope, for real, this is
This is
happening.
for
So
real. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
well,
So
any final words that you have for us today? And I just, oh my gosh, thank you for this. This is super cool to just to
mhm,
see it on in a presentation. But
yeah.
anything final before we go today?
So I'll just say that when it comes to disclosure, like maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago or and more, I was just so about like, when will they tell us? When will they tell us? I really put a lot of energy into maybe like I wanting the government to validate it so that my family, everybody else could really accept it. After years and years of being jaded and completely losing faith in authority and political figures, at this point, I want to be excited about this, but there's also a reservation within me because I've been burnt so many times, right?
Mm,
Ultimately, though, this is really important news, because why is UFOs? I'll leave it with this. Why is the UFO subject one of the largest and the most important subjects in the world? Well, it goes into every aspect of life and how we interact with each other and the planet. How we have the medical industry, for example, right? Cures for all types of sicknesses and diseases, the understanding of why we get sick and how to actually heal from it from a very advanced, higher conscious level. The energy, how we can travel and how we can utilize space time, right? Religion, who are we? Where do we come from? How are we connected to? That's why this topic has been so controlled and dripped at such a slow pace, is because it will literally shift the whole paradigm and the power structure in the world. So I recommend everybody looking into this, even though you might be in different parts of spirituality and wellness, but looking into this topic will only allow us to lead into a world where we have a better understanding of who we are and our place in the universe, right? So it's inevitable. We're going to have a post-disclosure world one day. And whether it's now or it's going to happen soon, I don't know. All I know is that we're making a lot of headway right now. A lot of big things are occurring.
I agree. And then even with like Space Force coming out when Trump came, immediately, I don't know if you probably noticed this, but immediately Netflix came out with like a TV show, Space Force, where they made a mockery of it and they kind of just made fun of the whole thing, you know, just to make sure that no one actually took any of this seriously. So
what's interesting, because both sides were for it. It's not like when Biden went into office, they closed it down. It's still up there. They want it to be up there. So they, you know, because whoever controls both sides wanted the Space Force to be released, no matter what.
Well, there's a need for it, or why would they have all that? You know, it's just, but still, how much money are they actually getting, and how much is still going like underground to these like side black ops type of things that nobody knows about or talks about, or if they do, you know, they don't really say much. But anyway, where can people find you? I know you got your conference coming up, but please give I'm going to have all the links, you guys, so you can connect with him and do all that. But just verbally, if you wouldn't mind telling us like how people can find you.
Sure. So you can find me at portaltoascension.org. That's the main website. And we just launched a new website. So we have a few thousand hours of content for free there. So you can go there, sign up, and then you get an email with your access info. And we have a lot of events. We have 2 years of events already scheduled on our website. So go to our website, check out the upcoming events there, YouTube, Portal to Ascension. And then if you're interested in the conference in Glastonbury, to like either tune in live in person or live stream, that's ascensionglastonbury.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And thanks for reaching out, and good luck with all your endeavors over there. And everybody send him good vibes and on all of this and how he's orchestrated all this and organization and promotion and advertising and people and resources and money and all of that, so he can continue doing what he's doing. And
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you so much. And for those of you watching too, don't forget swiftfire.org, get on the newsletter, or drsharnael.com, get on the newsletter. That way you know about all these upcoming shows, different conferences we're having, different things that are going on, biofeedback, books, resources, all the things. Love you guys so much, and we will see you next Thursday at noon. Hope you have an amazing week. Make it beautiful, and we just love you so much. Talk soon.